Hello, this is Alison again from Berroco with another video for our mystery knit along blocks, and this one is about Intarsia. Intarsia knitting is a way to work blocks of color without having to carry the other color or colors across the back of the work. This way of doing it, you just have the piece of yarn for each color going in one section and not getting carried across as you would with stranded color work, Fair Isle color work, anything like that, or even slip stitch color work. So we use a special joining method to make sure that there aren't gaps in the color changes. Usually Intarsia is worked flat, so the techniques that I'm demonstrating here aren't going to be applicable if you're working in the round. There are methods for working Intarsia in the round, but that's sort of a whole other topic. And for this simple Intarsia chart, which only has one section in each of the three colors used, we could simply use 3 balls of yarn to work from, but even with only 3 colors, it's easy for the yarns to get tangled as you're working. So I would recommend using bobbins. You can buy bobbins like these in a yarn shop or a craft store. But you can also, if you don't have access to these type of bobbins, you can make your own. So this is a handmade cardboard bobbin that I just made very quickly yesterday, and they're actually pretty effective. This is the yarn wound on a bobbin, and I just made this, I just literally drew this shape, like it looks sort of like a spool shape on a piece of cardboard, and then cut it out, and I made little notches on each side. So if I'm gonna wind this bobbin with yarn, I'm gonna just quickly do that. I would just hold that yarn down and wind it around this section here. Put that yarn into the little notch that I made, and then cut that off. So I'm going to use these 3 colors. And one thing to note with the bobbins is you want to prepare them before you start. This is a pretty simple one, as I said, that just has each block of color going across is just one block. But if you were making something more complicated, like for example, this sweater that has knit purl on the front of it, the chart for this one has many blocks of color going across, and you would need a separate bobbin for these stitches, and then another one for these stitches, and another one for these, and these, and these, and these, and these. Each block of color going across would need its own bobbin. So you can see why you wouldn't want to have balls of yarn for all of those, because for one thing, you might not need that many balls of yarn for your whole sweater, and also it would very easily get tangled in the back. So here for our block 5 chart, it is a lot simpler than the souvenir sweater, but like other charts that you've seen, it has a lot of the same qualities. Each square on the chart represents 1 stitch. In this case, because it's a color work chart, each square is the color of the stitch, as you would probably imagine. And just like other charts we've seen, the row numbers on the side of the chart indicate where you're starting. So your wrong side rows are where you have the number on the left-hand side of the chart, and you would read this way, and then the right side rows start with the numbers that are on the right-hand side of the chart, and you read this way. On this chart, because we have such long blocks of color in many cases, many of the rows, we have put in little numbers here, and that just tells you how many stitches across are in that color. You don't always see that, or it's probably even pretty rare to see that on a color work chart, but in this case, because they were such big blocks of color, we thought that would be helpful to put on the chart. I'm going to demonstrate using just a portion of this chart. So I've blown up this chart and I'm just going to be working over 15 stitches just to show you the techniques here. And I've cast on my stitches for this, and in this first row, I'm going to be working from the wrong side, and I'm going to just purl across all in this same color, just like the first row of the whole chart. So I'm just going to purl across here. Okay, so now we are on the next row, and this is going to be my first row that I have any color work. And I'm actually going to move, as I demonstrated in my previous chart reading video, I like to have a post-it just over the top of the row that I'm working. So I put the post-it here, and I'm going to be working this row right here. So now I get to join another color. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to just take out a little bit of yarn from where my bobbin is, and then I'm going to reattach it on there. And now I'm going to just knit one stitch in this color. And joining yarn, it's a little, it might feel a little fiddly, but I don't, tie anything anywhere. I just literally like kind of hold the yarn with the hand that I'm not holding the working yarn. I hold the tail, and then I just knit this first stitch, and tighten up that stitch around it. And now I'm going to take the next color from underneath, and I'm going to work 13 stitches is how many here. It's also one stitch before the end of the row. So we're just going to work with this one over to there. And now I'm going to join my other color. Put that down for a second. Take a little bit of yarn off of this bobbin and reattach it into my little slit there. And now I'm going to, again, I'm just holding the tail with the yarn that I'm not holding, the hand that I'm not holding the working yarn with, and I'm knitting that last stitch. So now we're going to go ahead and start the next row. So I'm going to move my post-it up, and we're going to turn to the wrong side. And you can already see how these things would get tangled if you had whole balls of yarn. And you can decide for yourself too, like how long a length you want to leave on your bobbins. And it does also help, I find, to do this on a table or some surface where you can, especially when you're first starting, so you can like lay out your bobbins in a row here. So we're going to start this next row, and we're going to do 2 stitches in the first color, the color that we ended with on that last row, and then we're going to switch to the middle color, and then we're going to go across 11 stitches, which is going to be now 2 stitches before the end, and you can see it's 1 stitch over from where we ended before. So you can use that visual cue to help you if you lose count or anything like that. And so I'm going to start my purl row. And it helps to just kind of keep hold of all the ends while you're doing this when you're first getting set up. I know it can be kind of fiddly, but you just have to like work through it. So I'm going to purl this first stitch, and now I'm going to purl the next stitch. And now we have a color change. So in order to make sure that we don't have a gap there, we're going to twist the yarns around each other. So we always want the new yarn to be coming up from underneath the yarn that you just ended with. So I'm gonna twist those around each other, and you can, don't lose your stitches. And then you're gonna go ahead and make sure you want to tug on things so that they're kind of a stable amount of space for each stitch, but you don't want to really yank on anything. That will distort your stitches. So now I'm going to go ahead and purl with this new color. 3, give myself a little more length on my bobbin. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now we are 1 stitch before the color change, and that's where we're changing color on this row. So again, you want to twist the yarns around each other. So I have, that's my one that I just finished with. I'm taking the new one from underneath it and I'm pulling it over the top of it. And then we're gonna work these last 2 stitches. Sometimes it can be good after you've made the stitch to just give that a little gentle tug. And then I'm gonna make my final stitch. There we go. And now we're ready with our next right side row. So I'm moving my post-it up to the next row. And again, we're just going in 1 stitch on each side with the colors. So I'm starting with my first color and doing 3 knits. 2, 3. And I bring my new color up from underneath. My old color goes over the top, which is easy when going that way. You kind of naturally do it when we're moving our line in this direction. And then when we get to the other side, we do the same thing. So I'm bringing my next color is coming from underneath, and I want to cross my previous color over the top of that one so that it twists them around each other. So when our line is moving in this direction, you have to make sure you cross that new color over. Do our last 3. Okay, so there's that row. Now we're gonna move to our next row. I'll move my post-it up, and we're gonna turn all these bobbins around so they don't get tangled. And we're starting our next purl row. Just like before, all of our colors are moving over 1 stitch. This from behind will be easier. And working with my first color, just give myself a little more slack on that bobbin. And I'm going to go 4, 2, 3, 4. And my new color, let's bring that to the front. My new color comes from underneath. And then we do the next 7 in this color. And I bring my new color up from underneath and just untangle these a little bit, get that one over there. And then this one comes up from underneath. And I like to just, especially when our line is going this way, sometimes it's nice to just make sure we hold this yarn that we just finished with so that it's moving the yarn over to where it needs to be. All right, and that's the end of that row. For this next row, the stitches don't move over at all. So on this one, it's actually a little bit easier in a way because you're just knitting the same color with the same color. Or purling actually, because we're working a wrong side row in this case. So we have these 5 in the first color. Bobbin, and I'm bringing it under. Right, and then I'm bringing this one under and over. The main thing is to make sure you're twisting at each color change. And now we are at our next one. I'm bringing this one under. Turn. It can help too when you finish a row to just sort of look at how those stitches are at that join and kind of get them to just sort of tug on them to get to be the right tension. Next row. To bring it under. So now we are done with this middle color. So I can actually cut that one off. Scissors right here. So I'm done with that one. And now we're ready to work this next row. So I have 7 stitches. And again, I can read my chart too. The number is over there because again, I'm just working with a small portion of the chart for this demo, but we can also just see I'm working all the way up to all the same stitches that were in this color on the previous row. And when I get to that middle color, that's where I'm starting the next color for this row. I'll stitch in that color. That's under first color. And this stitch, because we cut off the yarn there, it's going to be a little loosey-goosey, so you might want to just hold on to your tail while you knit that one. And there we have it. So we'll keep going with just those 2 colors until we get to the end of the chart. And that is our simple Intarsia square.